Welcome, sleepy soul. I'm your storyteller tonight, here to help you drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Before we begin, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more bedtime stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. And if there's a story you'd like to hear next, I'd love to know that too. I never thought much about first dates. People either clicked or they didn't, and half the time it was awkward small talk followed by a polite goodbye. But after months of being single, I figured I should at least put myself out there. I'm 26, living in a mid-sized city in Ohio, sharing an apartment with my best friend, Kara. We've known each other since college. She's the type who overthinks everything, and I'm the type who pretends I don't overthink until I'm pacing in the bathroom mirror 10 minutes before leaving. That night I had butterflies. Not the cute kind, the kind that feel like they're trying to claw their way out. I was curling my hair in the bedroom mirror while Kara sprawled across my bed, scrolling through Instagram reels with that exaggerated sigh she does when she wants me to pay attention. "Okay, Ava," she said, stretching my name like she was warning me. "How well do you actually know this guy?" I rolled my eyes, partly because she sounded like my mom, partly because her skepticism chipped at my fragile confidence. "His name's Daniel. He's a software engineer. Grew up around here. We've been texting for like 3 weeks. He seems normal." Kara sat up, raising one eyebrow. "Normal guys don't exist on dating apps. Only liars, gym bros, or psychos." "Thanks, really reassuring," I muttered, spraying my curls into place. She tossed her phone beside her. "I'm serious. You always give people the benefit of the doubt. Just keep your guard up, okay?" I smirked, slipping on my denim jacket. "You're just jealous because my date's taller than 5'9". "Bitch," Kara said with a laugh, hurling a pillow at me. My phone buzzed. Uber was outside. My stomach tightened as I grabbed my purse. Kara followed me to the door, suddenly serious again. "Text me when you get there. And share your location. If you forget, I swear I'll hunt you down myself." "I'll be fine," I assured her, though her words lingered in my chest longer than I wanted them to. The ride to the cafe took 20 minutes. The city lights blurred past, my reflection staring back at me in the window, lip gloss already fading, hands nervously adjusting my jacket zipper. The cafe was cozy, tucked near the highway, but far enough to feel like its own little bubble. A few couples sat scattered at tables, the warm yellow lights casting everything in a soft glow. And there he was. Daniel sat at the only empty table, dressed in a fitted black shirt, posture straight but not stiff. When he saw me, he smiled, and I couldn't help but smile back. "Hey," I said, sliding into the chair across from him. "Did I keep you waiting?" He tilted his head, pretending to think. "No, just 30 days, 20 hours, and 5 minutes. I laughed, covering my mouth. "Wow, you rehearsed that, didn't you?" "Maybe," he grinned, "but worth it." I relaxed. His humor disarmed me. The conversation flowed like we'd known each other longer than 3 weeks. We shared food, fed each other bites like teenagers in love, laughed at stupid jokes. Every time he leaned in to listen, I caught myself staring at his eyes, hazel with flecks of green. I thought Kara would roll her eyes if she saw me right now. When the server cleared our plates, Daniel excused himself to the restroom. As he stood, something slipped from his pocket and landed softly on the floor. I bent to pick it up. It was a folded white handkerchief. I expected fabric light and harmless. Instead, it was heavy. My curiosity betrayed me. I unfolded it. A scalpel, shiny, sharp. A smear of dried blood clung near the base of the blade. My throat locked up. For a moment, my body forgot how to breathe. The cafe noise faded into a dull hum. All I could hear was Kara's voice in my head. "Keep your guard up." My pulse thudded so hard it hurt. I refolded the cloth with trembling fingers and slipped it into my purse. My face schooled into something neutral. Daniel returned moments later, adjusting his sleeves, smiling like nothing was wrong. "All okay?" he asked, scanning my expression. I forced a smile. Yeah, just checking my phone. He sat, his arm brushing against mine. That smile, the one that had charmed me all evening, now felt like a mask. We kept talking, but I wasn't really listening. My laughter was hollow, my appetite gone. Every second was a performance to convince him nothing was wrong. Then he leaned closer, voice low. How about we go back to my place? Just a couple drinks? No pressure. I forced my phone to light up. Oh, my roommate just texted. She's sick. I should head home. Daniel's smile froze. For a split second, his eyes darkened. Then, slowly, he picked up the fork from my plate. I froze. He flipped it in his hand, holding it like a knife. Without breaking eye contact, he flattened his free hand on the table and began stabbing the fork between his fingers. Tap, tap, tap. At first, slow, then faster. The fork clinked against the wood, the rhythm growing frenzied. His nostrils flared, lips curling into something that wasn't a smile anymore. Daniel. My voice cracked. What are you doing? He didn't answer. His pupils widened, bloodshot eyes locking onto mine. The fork blurred as he stabbed faster, closer, harder. Stop it, it's not funny. A bead of blood welled at the tip of his finger. He didn't even flinch. If you don't stop, I swear I'll scream. He froze. Fork still pressed against the table. Then, with agonizing slowness, he smiled. A chilling, thin smile. I thought we'd spend more time together tonight. I swallowed hard. We can. Some other time. Daniel glanced around. A couple at the next table had noticed. He finally set the fork down, sucking the blood from his finger like nothing had happened. The server dropped off the check. I sat rigid, unable to speak. 5 minutes later, we stepped outside. The night air hit me like ice. I turned to leave, but his hand clamped around my wrist. Ava. His voice was low, almost tender, but the grip on my wrist burned. I thought you liked me. I do, I stammered, trying not to provoke him. Kara needs me. His eyes bored into me, unblinking, breath heavy. For a moment he didn't move. Then with sudden violence he shoved me. I stumbled, crashing onto the pavement. My knees scraped raw, blood soaking through my jeans. And then he spat on me. My stomach lurched. He leaned close, whispering venom into my ear. When they find you, if they find you, you'll be unrecognizable. Best of luck, Ava. And just like that, he walked away. I sat frozen, trembling, blood trickling down my legs. A cafe worker taking out trash rushed over. Oh my God, are you okay? He called 911. Police arrived, their questions sharp but almost unreal. I handed them the handkerchief from my purse. They searched for him, but his dating profile was already deleted. No trace. Kara cried when I got home. She held me like I was broken glass. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. It's been a month. I carry a taser and mace everywhere. I avoid strangers. I avoid dating apps. Some nights I replay the sound of that fork striking the table until I can't breathe. And I wonder, if I hadn't seen that scalpel, if I had gone with him, would I still be here? I never liked office parties, but somehow I always ended up going. Maybe it was the free booze, maybe it was the guilt of saying no, or maybe it was because after spending nearly 50 hours every week in that building, I didn't have much of a life outside of work anyway. This one was at a hotel banquet hall just outside the city. Our company had rented out the place for the night, complete with an open bar, DJ, and endless trays of food circulating through the crowd. Everyone seemed looser than they did in the office. The strict manager was dancing with the intern, the HR rep who never cracked a smile was singing karaoke, and people I barely exchanged hellos with at work were hugging me like long-lost friends. I stood by the bar with a whiskey in hand, nursing it slowly. I wasn't a dancer. Never had been. The music was too loud, the lights too sharp, Still, it was better than sitting home alone in my apartment, scrolling through dating apps I didn't have the energy to use. That's when I noticed her. She was standing near the far wall, half hidden in shadows where the colored lights didn't quite reach. Tall, poised, dressed in a deep maroon dress that hugged her frame without being flashy. Her dark hair fell over one shoulder, and she had this presence. Elegant but somehow heavy, like she was carrying something no one else could see. What caught my attention more wasn't her beauty. It was the way people reacted to her. I watched two of my co-workers, both tipsy, walk over to her, smiling, drinks in hand. But within seconds of speaking to her, their expressions shifted. They stiffened, exchanged quick glances, muttered excuses, and walked away without even finishing their drinks. The woman stayed still, unfazed, but there was something in the way her shoulders dropped, her lips pressed together, as if this had happened too many times before. Something about that sadness pulled me in. She eventually slipped out onto the balcony. For a while I hesitated, telling myself to stay put. But curiosity gnawed at me. Maybe it was the alcohol loosening my restraint. Maybe it was the loneliness, but I found myself grabbing 2 glasses of wine and walking out to join her. The night air was cold. The city spread out below us, dotted with lights, the hum of traffic faint but steady. She was leaning against the railing, looking down as if lost in thought. "You don't seem like the party type," I said, offering her the glass. She turned her head slowly. Her lips curved into a smile, not rushed or fake, but deliberate. "Neither do you." Her voice was calm, smooth, with the faintest rasp that made me lean closer. We talked. I learned her name was Clara. She'd recently moved to the city, started working at a marketing firm across town. She was witty, sharp, but also thoughtful, listening closely to what I said as if nothing around us mattered. She asked about my family, my past relationships, even my childhood. Most people glaze over when I answer, but she didn't. She probed deeper. It was strange but flattering. An hour slipped by before I realized it. "So," Clara said, swirling the wine in her glass, "is this our first date, then?" I laughed, caught off guard. Would it be wrong if it was? "Not at all," she said, her eyes glinting. For the first time in years, I felt like maybe something real could come out of an ordinary night. By midnight, the party was winding down. Some people were already stumbling into ride shares, others trying to drag their friends away from the dance floor. Clara stood close beside me, her perfume faint but lingering, and I asked if she wanted to come back to my place for another drink. Her smile widened. "I'd love to." My apartment wasn't anything special. A 1-bedroom on the 5th floor of an aging building, with creaky pipes and walls thin enough to hear the neighbor's TV. But it was mine. Clara made herself comfortable immediately, slipping off her heels, curling into the couch like she belonged there. "You live alone?" she asked, accepting the glass of wine I poured her. "Yeah," I said. "Been here about 3 years, close enough to work but far enough from downtown to stay sane." She smirked. Smart. We sat close, laughing about co-workers, bad dates, awkward family holidays. The more she talked, the more comfortable I felt. She had a way of pulling stories out of me I didn't usually share. Then my phone buzzed. It was my younger sister calling. I answered casually. "Hey, yeah, I'm fine. Just hanging out with a friend. I'll call you tomorrow." When I looked back, Clara's smile was gone. Her glass was frozen halfway to her lips. "Who was that?" she asked. "My sister," I said, frowning. "She checks up on me sometimes." Clara's voice was calm, almost too calm. "So, I'm just a friend?" I gave a nervous laugh. "I mean, we just met." Her grip tightened on the glass. "But you said this was our first date." Why lie? The room felt smaller suddenly. My chest tightened. "Clara, I didn't mean it like that." "You're right, it is a date, I just didn't want to." Her eyes burned into mine. "You men are all the same. Always trying to keep us at arm's length. disposable, replaceable. Whoa, hey, I said, raising my hands. That's not what I meant at all. She set her glass down sharply on the table. The sound echoed too loudly. Her voice dropped to a whisper. My ex said the same thing, before I burned his lying mouth shut. My blood went cold. Excuse me? Clara's laugh was high, brittle, wrong. They said I was unstable. Locked me away for a year. Said I was better now. Stable. But I can smell lies. And you just lied to me. I stood, heart racing. Clara, I think maybe you should... Her head tilted, smile stretching too wide. Why? Are you scared of me? I didn't answer. My body already screamed yes. She rose slowly, every movement deliberate, predatory. You should be. I backed toward the door, but before I could reach it, she lunged. The speed, the strength. It didn't match her frame. She slammed me into the wall, my head cracking against the plaster. Dazed, I scrambled toward the kitchen, hands shaking as I grabbed the nearest knife. Stay back, Clara, I shouted, my voice breaking. I swear I'll use this. Her eyes glimmered with something feral. That's funny. He tried that too, she charged. I swung, but she caught my wrist with claws, nails so sharp they carved into my skin. Blood spilled down my arm, the knife clattering to the floor. I screamed, struggling, but she pressed me against the counter, her breath hot, her voice trembling with rage. You don't want me anymore, do you? You're just like him. All of you. Stop, please, stop. I begged, pushing with all I had. She grabbed the fallen knife, raised it high. My muscles burned as I caught her wrist, the blade hovering inches from my eye. Clara, you're out of your mind, I shouted, every vein in my arms screaming as I resisted. Her teeth clenched, spit flying. No, I'm finally seeing clearly. My strength faltered. The tip of the blade trembled closer. Desperation took over. I slammed my forehead into hers. A sickening crack echoed. She screamed, stumbling back, blood pouring from her nose. I didn't wait. I snatched the wine bottle from the counter and swung with everything I had. The glass shattered against her temple. She collapsed, motionless. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My heart hammered, ears ringing. Then I grabbed my keys, bolted out the door, and didn't stop running until I was blocks away. Hours later, I returned with the police. I didn't go in alone. My coworkers confirmed seeing her at the party. They even admitted avoiding her because something about her felt wrong. The officers searched my apartment, but Clara was gone. Vanished. One of the detectives later told me Clara had been released from a psychiatric hospital only a month ago. She'd been one of their most violent patients. Faked recovery. Slipped right through. I moved out within the week. Changed numbers. Tried to erase her from my mind. But sometimes, late at night, I swear I hear footsteps outside my new apartment door. Slow. Patient. And I wonder if Clara is still out there, waiting for another first date. I never thought my choices would catch up to me the way they did. My name is Alyssa Monroe, I'm 27, and for the past year, I had this unhealthy thrill of dating married men. I know, it sounds bad, and maybe it is. But I liked the secrecy, the attention, and the way they tried to impress me like they were desperate to prove they still had something left to give. Maybe I was lonely, maybe I was stupid, or maybe I just liked the power. But last month, that thrill turned into the worst night of my life. I had moved to Riverside, California a year earlier, after breaking off a long-term engagement. My ex, Derek, was the safe option. Steady job, clean-shaven, family approved. But he was boring, and I was reckless. When things fell apart, I decided I wanted more excitement, even if it was dangerous. That's when I started using Tinder. And yes, I filtered out the single and looking guys. I wanted the ones with the discreet profiles, the vague bios, the ones who wore a wedding ring in their pictures but acted like it wasn't there. Married men. I know. It sounds like playing with fire. The thing is, they always paid. They always chased. And I felt wanted in a way Derek never made me feel. Then came Nathan Crawford. I matched with Nathan on a Wednesday. His profile was simple. One photo of him in a dark suit, standing next to a sleek black Mercedes. His bio said, "Work hard, play harder." Not looking for anything serious. Just fun. We started texting. His style was cocky, borderline arrogant, but he knew how to compliment without sounding cheesy. "Red is your color," he texted after I sent him a mirror selfie in a casual outfit. "You haven't even seen me in red," I teased. "I don't need to." I can tell by Saturday, he asked me to meet him at a high-end restaurant called the Oakwood Grill, just off the main strip downtown. "You'll love it. Best wine list in the city. Be there at 8:30. I'll take care of everything." I hesitated. My sister Melissa had warned me 1,000 times about this lifestyle. "You're going to mess with the wrong wife one day, Liz," she'd said. "Not every woman just cries herself to sleep. Some fight back." I laughed her off. Please, these guys wouldn't risk their lives if their wives were that scary. I should have listened. That night I put on a tight, deep red dress I'd been saving for the right occasion. It wasn't trashy, but it hugged me in all the right places. For safety, I wore a short brown wig. My real hair was long and blonde, and I liked the idea of hiding just enough of myself to feel in control. When I arrived at the restaurant, it was 8:30 sharp. Nathan was already outside, leaning against the hood of his Mercedes. He wasn't exactly what I expected, tall, slightly balding at the temples, but his suit screamed money. His watch alone looked like it cost more than my rent. "Damn," he said as his eyes ran over me. "Pictures don't do you justice." I smirked. "You're not too bad yourself." We walked in together and he immediately led us to a corner table he'd reserved. From the moment we sat down, his eyes barely left me. It was flattering at first, but the way he scanned me, like he was cataloging every inch, made my skin prickle. "So does your wife know you're here?" I teased, sipping water. He chuckled nervously. "God, no. If she did, she'd kill me." I laughed lightly. "That's scary, huh?" "You'd understand if you ever met her," he said, forcing a smile. "But let's not talk about her tonight." The night rolled on. Expensive dishes, bottles of champagne, endless compliments about my body. I let him look. That was the game. But then, just as he was paying the bill, it all changed. A scream split through the air. "Nathan, you bastard!" The restaurant went silent. Heads turned. My stomach flipped as I saw her storming in, a woman in her mid-30s, raven hair pulled into a tight bun, emerald green eyes sharp as blades. She was beautiful, but terrifying. "Monica." Nathan's voice cracked. "Oh, don't Monica me," she barked. "I knew you weren't at some damn meeting. And look at you wasting money on this little slut." Her eyes snapped to me, and for a second I forgot how to breathe. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I stammered, standing from the table. She sneered, jaw tight. "So this is who he's spending my money on. A pathetic homewrecker in a cheap wig." "Please, let's just go home," Nathan begged, standing now, his hands raised. But Monica wasn't listening. She snatched a wine bottle from the next table and smashed it across Nathan's forehead. Blood gushed instantly as he stumbled back, screaming. Gasps and shrieks echoed across the restaurant. A couple rushed for the exit. The manager fumbled with his phone, yelling for someone to call 911. I turned to leave, but before I could take a step, Monica's hand clamped around my wrist. Her grip was iron. "You think you can just waltz into someone's marriage?" she snarled, spit flying. "Let me go!" I screamed, tugging against her. Her fist connected with my cheek so hard my head snapped sideways. Pain exploded. The room spun. Before I knew it, I was on the floor, tears streaming from my eyes. She didn't stop. She grabbed my leg and dragged me across the restaurant, my heels screeching against the floor. "Help! Somebody help!" I screamed. No one came. Monica hauled me into the kitchen, slamming the door shut behind us. The staff had fled. It was just us. I scrambled backward, my palms slick with sweat until my back hit the cold steel counter. "Monica, please," I begged, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'll never do this again." I swear her lips curled into a sick smile. "Oh, honey, I don't care about your promises. I want you to feel what I feel. I want you ruined." She glanced at the deep fryer, bubbling with hot oil. My stomach dropped. "Please," I whispered. "Please don't." But she lunged, her hands wrapping around my neck, shoving me toward the fryer. The heat seared my skin as I fought, clawing at the counter, kicking, screaming. "You bitches think you can take anything you want," she hissed. "Well, guess what? Tonight you lose your pretty little face," the fryer hissed inches from me. Steam curled up, blisters forming on my skin just from the heat. My wig slid halfway off. Tears blurred my vision. "I don't want to die," I screamed. Monica laughed, pushing harder. My nose hovered just above the bubbling oil. The smell of hot grease filled my lungs. I could almost feel my flesh melting already. "Say goodbye, sweetheart." The kitchen door burst open with a deafening crack. "Police! Drop her!" Monica whipped her head around just as a gunshot rang out. She screamed, collapsing as a bullet tore into her leg. I fell to the floor, gasping, coughing, shaking uncontrollably. 2 officers pulled me away while another cuffed Monica as she writhed on the tiles. "You're safe now," one of them whispered as he draped a jacket over my shoulders. But I didn't feel safe, not even close. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. My cheek was bruised, my arm scraped raw, but I was alive. The doctor said if the cops had been even a minute later, my face would have been submerged. Nathan was discharged the next day with stitches across his forehead. Monica was taken into custody and later sentenced to prison for attempted murder. As for me, I moved back in with my sister Melissa. I don't go on dates anymore. I can't. I jump every time I hear raised voices in public. I can't stand the smell of fried food. Even the sound of oil popping in a pan makes me cry. The scars aren't just on my skin, they're in my mind. I thought I liked the thrill, but I never imagined it would almost cost me my life. Now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the girl in the red dress anymore. I see someone who barely survived her own bad choices, and maybe that's punishment enough. I never thought my first real date would end up being the story I'd carry with me for the rest of my life. Back then, I was 21, working evenings at a small clothing store near the Strip in Daytona Beach, Florida. Most nights I was too tired to even think about dating, but my coworker kept telling me I needed to get out before I turned into wallpaper. That's how I ended up saying yes when a guy named Marcus Vega asked me out. I'd met him at a friend's gathering a week earlier. He wasn't pushy. He wasn't cocky. He just had this quiet, genuine smile that caught me off guard. He worked at a used bookstore downtown, and when he asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime, I surprised myself by agreeing. The night of the date, I stood in front of the mirror in my tiny apartment, debating whether the green dress I'd chosen was too much. My roommate, Jess, lounged on the couch, scrolling through a magazine. "You look fine," she said, not even glancing up. "Fine or good?" I pressed. Jess smirked. Good enough to make him nervous. "Now stop pacing." I grabbed my purse, my palms already sweating. First dates always made me feel like I was auditioning for a role I didn't know the lines for. When Marcus knocked, Jess darted to the door before me, opened it, and gave him this exaggerated once-over. "You must be the famous Marcus," she said, smirking. He chuckled awkwardly. "I hope that's a good thing." "Depends," Jess teased. Then she nudged me forward. "Go on, have fun. And don't do anything I wouldn't do." I rolled my eyes at her, muttered a goodbye, and stepped outside with him. His car was nothing fancy, just an old Toyota with a humming engine, but it was clean. The radio played softly, some rock station. "So," Marcus said as he pulled away from the curb. "Nervous?" "Why would you say that?" I asked, gripping my purse a little tighter. Because you haven't taken a full breath since you got in the car, he said with a crooked grin. I laughed despite myself. Okay, maybe a little. Good, he said. Now I don't feel so bad for being nervous, too. That honesty loosened something in me. We drove into the heart of Daytona, neon lights buzzing outside the windows, the air thick with salt and humidity. He told me about a customer at the bookstore who tried to pay with seashells, and I told him about a kid who once tried to shoplift a mannequin scarf by wrapping it around his waist. We laughed, and for a while it felt easy. The restaurant he chose was a Cuban spot tucked between a laundromat and a record shop. Inside, the air smelled of roasted pork and fresh coffee. The walls were painted with bright tiles, and old black and white photos hung crookedly in frames. We got a small table near the window. Families crowded around larger tables, waiters rushed by with trays, and outside, the street was alive with cars and voices. I felt myself relax. Marcus leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. So, Anna, what's your guilty pleasure? Don't say chocolate, that's too easy. I smiled, fiddling with my straw. I sing to myself when I'm nervous, in the shower, in the car. It's awful. I'm tone-deaf good, he said. Then you'll never judge me for liking terrible movies. I laughed. Like what? Before he could answer, it happened. A sharp pop cracked through the air. For a second, I thought someone outside had set off fireworks. Then the window beside us shattered inward with a thunderous crash. Shards of glass rained over our table, and the pops kept coming, faster, louder. Gunshots. Screams erupted around us. Get down, Marcus yelled, grabbing my arm and pulling me beneath the table. My knees slammed the floor, my heart jackhammering so hard it hurt. People were crying, chairs scraped violently, plates shattered. The gunfire was deafening, messy, chaotic. My ears rang so badly that everything felt muffled, like we were underwater. I pressed my hands over my head, feeling the sting of glass under my palms. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. Marcus, what's happening? I whispered, my voice trembling. I don't know. Just stay down. His hand clutched mine tightly. Every second felt like forever. I kept picturing someone bursting through the door with a mask, spraying bullets at random. My chest ached with fear. Then, just as suddenly, the shots stopped. The silence was worse than the noise. Somewhere a child sobbed. A woman screamed something in Spanish. The smell of gunpowder hung in the air, mixed with spilled coffee and food. I dared to peek out. The restaurant was wrecked. Glass glittered across the floor. A man crouched by the counter, blood seeping from his shoulder. A woman held a cloth to another's arm. People huddled together, wide-eyed, shaking. Marcus pulled me up slowly, his face pale. Are you okay? Did you get hit? I shook my head, though my hands were trembling uncontrollably. Outside, sirens wailed, growing louder. Word spread quickly among the terrified whispers. Some political protester had driven by, firing shots into the restaurant to make a statement. They didn't want to kill anyone, just scare people. But that didn't matter. They could have killed us. They could have killed a kid or a mother or anyone. I stood frozen, my body shaking, until police officers burst in, shouting commands. Stay where you are, one barked. Help is coming. Don't panic. But it was too late for that. Panic had already lodged itself deep inside me. Marcus squeezed my hand again, gently. You're okay. We're okay, he whispered, though his own voice shook. I wanted to believe him, but all I could think about was how, one moment I'd been worrying about whether my dress was too plain, and the next I was praying under a table, convinced I'd never see my mother again. We gave our statements numb, repeating what little we'd seen. Hours later, Marcus drove me home in silence. The radio was off. The streets felt eerie, emptied of life. When he parked, I sat frozen, staring at my apartment door. You want me to walk you up? He asked softly. I nodded. My legs felt like jelly climbing the steps. At the door I turned to him searching for words, but all I managed was, "Thank you for pulling me down." He gave a tired smile. "First dates aren't supposed to be like that." "No," I whispered. That night I couldn't sleep. Every noise made me flinch. I kept hearing the pops, the shattering glass, the screams. I pressed my pillow over my ears, but it didn't help. Marcus called the next day to check in. We met again once, then again, but something had shifted. Maybe we had been forced into a bond too intense, too soon. The spark never grew. It was buried under the weight of fear. I never went back to that restaurant. Even when it reopened, I couldn't step inside. Every time I walked past, I saw myself under that table again, begging God not to let me die. Life moved on, but the scar stayed. To this day, whenever I hear a car backfire or glass shatter, my chest tightens and my breath catches. Because I learned on that first date how quickly the world can turn from laughter to chaos, and how close I came to never walking out of that little restaurant alive. I never thought my first date in months would end with me sitting on a curb, hands trembling, police lights blinding my eyes, and strangers gawking like I was some kind of criminal. But I guess that's the kind of luck I've always had with men. Let me back up a little. I'm Alina, 24, born and raised in Brookfield, a small city that's just big enough to feel fast but small enough that you always run into people you know. I work at a pharmacy chain, spend most of my evenings either curled up on the couch binging shows or scrolling through TikTok until my eyes burn. My friends kept telling me I was wasting my mid-20s, that I should be putting myself out there. I wasn't really buying it, but loneliness has a way of catching up to you at night. So, one Friday, I re-downloaded Matchup, that dating app I swore I'd never touch again. Swipe after swipe, the faces blurred together, gym selfies, fishing photos, awkward bathroom mirror shots. And then there was him, Darius. He wasn't the kind of guy I usually went for. His profile screamed confidence, maybe too much. Picture after picture of him leaning against his tricked-out Nissan, flashing designer sneakers and throwing up peace signs. Hood rich, I thought to myself. Gold chains, flashy outfits, tattoos creeping out from under his sleeves. Not subtle, but his smile had this disarming charm, and his bio said, "I make the nights fun. Don't swipe if you're boring." Against my better judgment, I swiped right. We matched instantly. The messages started casual, him teasing me about my safe pictures, me rolling my eyes at his cocky tone. But I have to admit, he was funny, sharp, quick with his comebacks. Over a few days, we built this rhythm. He asked me out, suggested a drive through the city and maybe grabbing food. It felt low pressure, and honestly I hadn't been on a proper date in almost a year. I said yes. By Saturday night I was pacing my apartment, checking the mirror for the 10th time. I kept it simple. Black jeans, a fitted maroon top, white sneakers. My best friend Mara texted me, "Send me his plate number just in case. Don't get murdered." I laughed it off, but deep down, I felt that twinge of nervousness that always comes before meeting someone new. Then I heard it. A deep, chest-rattling bass vibrating the walls of my flat. I looked out the window and saw a gleaming, low-slung Nissan parked at the curb, its tinted windows reflecting the streetlights. The exhaust rumbled like it was alive. Darius leaned out the driver's side window, flashing that same cocky grin from his profile. "Alina?" "Yeah," I said, walking over, pulling my jacket tighter around me. "Hop in." "You ready?" His voice was smooth, confident, like he owned the night. Inside, the car smelled like a cocktail of air freshener and leather polish. The dashboard glowed with blue neon lights. He was dressed in a black tracksuit with gold lettering, a chain hanging heavy around his neck. His hair was freshly lined up, his beard trimmed sharp. He looked like he'd stepped right out of one of his Instagram posts. "You look good," he said, giving me a once-over before pulling the gear shift. Thanks. So do you, I replied, trying to play it cool. We drove through Brookfield's downtown, neon signs reflecting off the wet pavement. Music blared. Trap beats so heavy I could feel them in my chest. Darius talked nonstop about how he'd saved for his car mods, about street races he might have been in, about dreams of moving out of Brookfield. "See this baby?" he said, patting the dashboard. "All me." People doubted I could pull it off, but look now. Everyone want to ride with Darius. I laughed politely. "I'll admit it's impressive." "You ain't seen nothing yet." His grin widened. We hit the outskirts of town where the roads were emptier. Darius glanced at me, eyes glinting with mischief. "Want to see what she can really do?" I hesitated, then shrugged. Sure, I guess." That was my mistake. He slammed the accelerator. The car lurched forward, my stomach dropping as the speedometer climbed past 80, 90, 100. I gripped the seat, my knuckles white. "Darius," I shouted over the music. "Slow down. Relax, I got this." His laugh was wild, almost manic. The city blurred past, streetlights streaking like comets, buildings warping into shadows. My chest tightened with every turn, every swerve. Then I heard it. Sirens. At first faint, then louder, closer, urgent. I turned to look behind us. Flashing red and blue lights cut through the night. 2 squad cars, maybe 3, closing in fast. My heart plummeted. "Darius, what the hell did you do?" He didn't answer. His jaw tightened, hands gripping the wheel. "Just hold on." And then he floored it. The Nissan roared, weaving through traffic like a bullet. My breath caught in my throat. Horns blared as we cut across lanes, the police cars chasing us like wolves. "This isn't funny. Pull over," I screamed. "Can't," he muttered. "Not tonight." We hit a long stretch of industrial road. The squad cars stayed on us, lights reflecting off the car's cracked rearview mirror. My vision tunneled, everything narrowing to the sirens, the lights, the sickening speed. And then, bang. The car jolted violently, my head slammed against the window. Dazed, I heard tires screeching, metal grinding. "What was that?" I gasped. "They hit us," Darius spat. Another impact. The Nissan spun, tires screaming against the asphalt. I braced myself, my scream lost in the chaos. We skidded sideways, smoke curling up from the tires until the car shuddered to a stop. Before I could catch my breath, glass shattered. The driver's side window exploded, shards raining down. Darius cursed, ducking. My side window went next, the freezing night air rushing in. "Hands where I can see them!" Voices boomed from every direction. Blinding lights, guns pointed at us through broken glass. My body went numb. I raised my trembling hands. I didn't do anything, please," Darius shouted back. "I didn't steal this car. You got no proof. Out! Now!" I fumbled with the door, stumbling barefoot onto the cold asphalt, my left sneaker gone, lost in the chaos. My legs barely held me as an officer yanked me away, pulling me behind a patrol car. "Name?" he demanded. "Hey, Alina, I swear I don't know what's happening. This is our first date. I met him online. I didn't know." They searched me, patted me down. Tears blurred my vision as curious drivers slowed to gawk. My face burned with humiliation. Behind me, I heard Darius screaming, struggling as they pinned him to the ground. Metal cuffs clinked. "Don't let them lie about me," he shouted, his voice cracking with rage. But no one listened. The officer questioning me narrowed his eyes. "You're saying you had no idea the vehicle was flagged?" "No. I thought it was his. He picked me up for a date. That's all." My voice broke, raw with fear. The cop studied me for a long moment before sighing. "We'll need your statement. Give me your details." They kept me there for what felt like hours, repeating questions, taking notes while the adrenaline left me shaking. Eventually, they decided I wasn't involved. One officer drove me home in silence. The ride felt surreal, quiet except for the crackle of the radio. I stared out the window, watching the city lights blur. my reflection pale and hollow in the glass. When we pulled up outside my apartment, I muttered, "Thanks," and bolted inside. I locked the door, slid down against it, and sat in the dark, shaking. My phone buzzed with Mara's messages. "So? How was it?" I didn't reply. I deleted Darius's number, unmatched him, blocked every trace of him. All I'd wanted was a fun night out, a little excitement. Instead, I'd ended up trapped in a nightmare, guns pointed at my face, my life flashing before my eyes. And the worst part? Some reckless, cocky stranger had dragged me straight into it. That night, I swore I'd never gamble on a first date again. I never thought a first date could change the way I looked at people forever. To be fair, I hadn't been on a proper date in a while. I was 27, living alone in a modest one-bedroom apartment in Columbus, Ohio. I worked as a junior marketing analyst for a local firm, which basically meant long hours staring at spreadsheets that no one outside of my office cared about. My dating life had been slow, partly because I'd been burned a couple of times, partly because my energy was usually drained by the time I got home. But then a mutual friend set me up with someone she swore was a gentleman. His name was Nikos Stavros, a 31-year-old who, according to her, came from a well-off Greek family that had invested in restaurants and real estate around the city. She said he was charming, driven, and single because he'd been too focused on his business. That sounded promising. Someone with ambition, someone who could carry a conversation. Plus, I had this romantic idea that maybe meeting through a friend was safer than apps. Apps always made me feel like I was swiping through people like trading cards. So when Nikos reached out to me on Instagram, his profile neat and curated with photos of expensive suits, European vacations, and sleek sports cars, I agreed to meet him. The day of the date, I stood in front of my mirror longer than I should have, second-guessing everything. My roommate Jess was sprawled across the couch scrolling on her phone. "You look fine," she said without looking up. "Fine?" That's not exactly confidence-boosting. I turned sideways, tugging at the hem of my navy dress. It wasn't flashy, but it was fitted in a way that made me feel like I'd made an effort. Jess finally glanced at me, smirking. "You look good, I promise. Stop freaking out." "What's his name again?" "Nikos." She wrinkled her nose. "Sounds like a guy who makes women cry." I threw a pillow at her. "You're so supportive." Jess laughed, but then turned serious. "Just text me when you get there, text me when you leave, and if anything feels off, call me, okay?" "Okay, Mom." But deep down, I knew she was right. I'd promised myself after my last breakup that I'd listen to my gut. Nikos picked the place. Le Jardin, one of those upscale restaurants downtown with white tablecloths, gold-trimmed menus, and waiters who seemed like they were trained to glide rather than walk. I took a cab because my car was still in the shop. When I walked in, I saw him immediately. He was standing near the host stand, tall, broad-shouldered, with perfectly styled black hair and a tailored charcoal suit. His watch gleamed under the lights. "Nora?" he said, flashing a practiced smile. "That's me." He kissed my hand, which made me blush and cringe at the same time. We sat down, and before I could even glance at the menu, Nikos ordered for both of us: lobster bisque, filet mignon medium rare, and a bottle of Cabernet. "Wow, decisive," I said lightly. "I know what's good here," he replied, leaning back in his chair like a king surveying his court. "Conversation, or lack of it." I tried to make conversation. "So how did you get into real estate?" "It's a family thing," he said curtly. "Do you enjoy it?" He shrugged. "It pays well." I laughed awkwardly. "Fair enough. Do you have any hobbies?" He smirked. "Making money." I thought he was joking, but he didn't crack a smile. It wasn't just the short answers. It was the way he looked at me, like he was assessing a house he might buy, calculating the square footage rather than actually listening. The food arrived, and while it was delicious, I barely tasted it. My unease grew when he snapped at the waiter for bringing the wrong wine. "This isn't the 2016. Nikos barked, his voice sharp. Do I look like someone who wouldn't notice? The waiter stammered an apology, but Nikos didn't let it go. Unbelievable. A restaurant like this and they can't train staff to do the simplest thing. I shifted in my seat. It's fine, really. I'm not that picky. Nikos didn't even glance at me. By the end of lunch, I knew I didn't want to see him again. His arrogance, his cruelty, it was suffocating. When the bill came, he tossed his black Amex on the table without looking at it. I'll split if you want, I offered. He waved me off. Don't insult me. I invited you outside. The sun was bright, the city buzzing with Saturday energy. I was planning to call another cab when Nikos jingled his keys. Where's your car? In the shop, I admitted. Then I'll take you home. I hesitated. My instinct screamed, don't do it. But the cab fare to my apartment across town would have been steep, and he was already holding the car door open to his gleaming black BMW. Come on, he said smoothly. I'll get you there faster. I forced a smile and slid in. At first, everything seemed fine. He asked for my address, typed it into the GPS, and pulled onto the freeway. But after 10 minutes, I realized he wasn't following the route. The skyline shrank in the rearview mirror as he veered onto quieter streets lined with trees. This isn't the way, I said carefully. I'm taking the scenic route, he replied, eyes fixed on the road. My stomach tightened. Another 10 minutes passed and the city gave way to farmland. Cornfields stretched endlessly on either side, the occasional barn flashing by. Nikos, I'd rather just go straight home. My voice was firmer this time. He smirked. Relax, you'll get there. Don't you like a little adventure? My hands clenched in my lap. Please, just take me home. That's when his demeanor shifted. His smile vanished. His tone dropped. You think I don't see what you're doing? He said coldly. What are you talking about? You used me. You let me pay for an expensive lunch, let me waste my afternoon when you had no intention of seeing me again. That's not true, I stammered. Don't lie. His grip tightened on the steering wheel. I can read people. You were bored the whole time I opened my mouth, but he cut me off. You know what's funny? Out here, no one would hear you scream. I could drive deeper into the country, pull off onto one of these dirt roads, and you'd disappear. No one would find you for days, maybe weeks. My blood went cold. I tried to keep my voice steady. Nikos, please. I didn't mean to upset you. Just take me home. I'll never bother you again. He chuckled, a low sound that chilled me. You couldn't bother me if you tried. The ride stretched on in silence, except for the hum of the engine. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I thought about Jess, how she'd told me to text her. I hadn't. No one knew where I was. I stared at the road, at the endless fields, and wondered if this was the last thing I'd ever see. Finally, without a word, Nikos made a sharp U-turn. My breath caught in my throat, but I didn't dare speak. We drove back toward the city. Every mile closer felt like being pulled out of a nightmare, but I didn't relax. Not yet. When we finally reached my neighborhood, he pulled up in front of my apartment building. I reached for the door handle, desperate to escape. But his hand shot out, gripping my wrist. His eyes bored into mine. You remember this, he said quietly. I could have done anything to you out there. Anything. Don't forget that. Then he released me. I stumbled out of the car, legs shaking, and ran inside without looking back. I barely slept that night. Every creak in the apartment made me flinch. The next morning I went to the police. I told them everything. His threats, the way he'd driven me miles into the countryside, the things he'd said. They brought him in. But Nikos spun a different story. He told them he'd simply wanted more time to talk, that I'd been dramatic, that I'd misinterpreted everything. Without evidence, no recordings, no texts, the police could only give him a warning. I was furious, but not surprised. Men like him knew how to manipulate, how to twist reality until you doubted yourself. For weeks after, I checked my locks twice every night. I jumped whenever a black car slowed near my street. I never saw him again, but the memory stayed, a scar etched into the way I approached dating. I learned something that day. Danger doesn't always come in the form of a stranger in a dark alley. Sometimes it comes dressed in a suit, smiling across a white tablecloth table, holding the door open to a car you should never get into. And I swore to myself, I would never ignore my instincts again. I was 22 when it happened, fresh out of college and still figuring out who I was supposed to be. My degree was in communications, but that felt like just a fancy word for lost. I didn't land the kind of job I thought I would. Instead, I worked mornings and afternoons at Ashwood Cafe, a small coffee shop in the heart of Durham, North Carolina. The cafe sat on a corner with brick walls and wide windows that let the sunlight pour in, giving everything a golden tint in the mornings. I told myself it was just temporary, something to hold me over until I figured life out. The customers became familiar faces over time. The old man with the newspaper, the nursing student who always fell asleep at the counter waiting for her cappuccino, the moms in yoga pants who came in after their classes. But then there was Caleb Hart. Caleb wasn't a regular at first, but he came in often enough for me to notice. He stood out, mostly because of how unhurried he always seemed. While most people barked out their orders half distracted by their phones, Caleb would actually look at me when he ordered. "Large black coffee," he said the first time I met him. He smiled, a crooked kind of smile, and added, "No cream, no sugar. Guess I'm boring like that." I laughed, sliding the cup toward him. "Or maybe you just like coffee the way it's supposed to taste." He tilted his head like he hadn't thought of it that way. "Maybe you're right." The second time he came in, he remembered my name from my little badge and used it. "Morning, Emily," he said. Just that small detail made my stomach flutter. By the third or fourth visit, I realized I was fixing my hair before I went to the register if I saw him in line. I hated myself for how obvious it probably looked, but I couldn't help it. Caleb had this presence, not flashy, not cocky. He carried himself in a way that was steady, like he wasn't trying to impress anyone. One Tuesday morning, he lingered at the counter a little longer than usual. The cafe was quiet, just me and one other coworker. "You ever let customers take you out for dinner?" he asked casually, like he was asking about the weather. I blinked, caught off guard. "Depends. What's on the menu?" He chuckled. "Whatever you want." "Friday night?" The word slipped out of me faster than I could process. "Sure. And just like that, I had a date. Friday came, and I found myself tearing apart my closet in frustration. My roommate, Lily, sprawled across her bed, scrolling on her phone, rolled her eyes at my panic. "Blue dress," she said without looking up. "You didn't even see what I held up. You always overthink this stuff. The blue one makes your eyes pop. Done." I sighed but put it on anyway. She was right, it worked. I paired it with ankle boots, took one last glance in the mirror, and tried to calm the fluttering in my chest. At 7:15, my phone buzzed. "I'm outside, Caleb." When I stepped out of the apartment building, Caleb leaned against a dark gray Honda Civic. He wasn't overdressed, dark jeans, a white button-up, sleeves rolled at the elbows. He looked comfortable, confident in the way that made me even more nervous. "You look..." He paused, letting out a small laugh. "Honestly, you look amazing." "Thanks," I said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He opened the car door for me, which felt old-fashioned in the nicest way. He took me to a little Italian restaurant tucked away on a quieter street downtown. The kind of place with warm lighting, candles flickering on tables, and the smell of garlic and fresh bread drifting through the air. Conversation came easy. "So you went to UNC, right?" Caleb asked, twirling his fork in his pasta. "Yeah, graduated last spring, communications major." "And now you're at Ashwood Cafe?" I laughed, a little embarrassed. "Yeah, not exactly glamorous. But hey, free coffee." He grinned. There are worse perks in life. I asked about him. He said he worked in IT for a mid-sized company. Nothing exciting in his words. But when he talked about saving up to travel, specifically Europe, his eyes lit up in a way that made him seem alive in a whole different way. Dinner flew by, and by the time we were done, neither of us seemed ready to call it a night. "You like dancing?" he asked as we stepped outside. I shrugged. "I'm not very good at it, but yeah. There's a club a few blocks away. Loud music, overpriced drinks. Want to?" I hesitated for a second, then nodded. Why not? The club was packed. The bass pounded so hard it felt like it rattled my chest, and flashing lights painted everything in neon blues and reds. We pushed through sweaty crowds, ordered overpriced cocktails, and eventually found ourselves dancing. I wasn't thinking about how ridiculous I probably looked. I was just laughing, moving, letting the night blur around me. Caleb wasn't a great dancer either, but he leaned into it, smiling at me like the whole world disappeared in that moment. That's when Eli Jacobs showed up. He slid into our space on the dance floor like he owned it. All slicked back hair, expensive cologne, and a too-perfect smile. He looked older, mid to late 30s maybe. "Name's Eli," he shouted over the music, then with a smirk. "But everyone calls me Jacuzzi Eli." I laughed, thinking it was some dumb inside joke. "Why?" "You'll see." His eyes sparkled in a way I didn't like. Caleb's smile faded a little, though he didn't say anything. Within minutes, Eli was inviting us to an after-party at his place. A few other people overheard and chimed in, excited. Before I realized what was happening, 6 or 7 of us piled into Ubers headed toward Eli's house. I should have known better, but at 22, adventure felt more important than caution. Eli's place was stunning. A massive 2-story modern home with floor-to-ceiling windows and manicured lawns. Inside, everything gleamed. Polished wood floors, an expansive bar, leather furniture. Out back, through sliding glass doors, sat the crown jewel, a steaming hot tub under string lights. "Now you get the nickname," Eli said, spreading his arms proudly. People laughed, pouring drinks, jumping into the hot tub. Eli moved effortlessly among everyone, topping off glasses, cracking jokes, making sure no one was empty-handed. I got swept up in it, dancing with some of the girls, sipping my drink, letting the buzz carry me. But Caleb was quiet. He stayed close, scanning the room like he was cataloging every detail. At one point, he leaned down. "You good?" "Yeah," I laughed, taking another sip. "Why?" "You're not having fun?" He shrugged. "Just keeping an eye out." I waved him off. "Relax. It's fine." But around 2 a.m., he pressed again. "We should head out." I frowned. "What, already? The night's still going?" "I'm tired," he said flatly, then softer. I don't like this vibe." I wanted to argue, but the seriousness in his eyes stopped me. With a sigh, I nodded. The Uber ride back was quiet. I tried to lighten it. "You really are a buzzkill, you know." He chuckled faintly but didn't answer. When he dropped me off, he hugged me quickly. "Text me tomorrow, okay?" I went to bed still humming with leftover adrenaline, convinced Caleb was just overly cautious. The next morning my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Emily Carson?" a man asked. His voice was steady, professional. "Yes. This is Officer Daniels with the Durham Police Department. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding a house party you attended last night." My stomach dropped. What happened? Can you come down to the station?" At the station, they sat me in a small, pale room and asked me to recount everything. When I arrived, who I was with, what I saw. Then they told me why. A girl at the party had been assaulted. By Eli. The world tilted beneath me. I thought of his perfect smile, the way he hovered around the girls, topping off drinks. My throat tightened. He seemed so normal, I stammered. "I didn't see anything, he was just..." The officers exchanged a glance. One said quietly, "We've found a lot on his computer. He's been doing this for a long time." By the time they let me go, I was shaking so hard I could barely hold my car keys. That afternoon, I told Caleb everything. His jaw clenched, and for a long time he didn't speak. Finally, he said, "I knew something was wrong. The way he was hovering, the way he pushed drinks. I didn't want to scare you, so I just said I was tired." Tears stung my eyes. "You saved me." He shook his head. "No, you listened. That's what saved you." In the weeks that followed, I kept up with the case. Eli's real name wasn't even Eli. It was Christopher Vaughn. Jacuzzi. Eli was just a nickname he wore like armor. Police found hard drives full of videos, parties like the one I went to. Girls who weren't as lucky as me. He was sentenced to 10 years. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Every time I thought about it, my stomach turned. I kept replaying the night in my head. If I'd stayed longer, if I'd gotten in that hot tub, if I'd taken just one more drink, it could have been me. Caleb and I kept seeing each other after that. Our relationship wasn't built on that night, but it shaped something between us, a trust I didn't know I was capable of. Sometimes I still hear Lily's voice in my head. "You always overthink things." But now I know. Sometimes overthinking, or just listening to the gut feeling of someone you trust, can save your life. That night could have changed me forever, but thanks to Caleb Hart, it didn't. I've always hated admitting it, but my dating history has been a mess. Not the kind of messy where you laugh about it with friends later, but the kind that leaves scars, some visible, some not. The kind that makes you question whether you're the problem, whether maybe something in you keeps drawing the same kinds of men over and over. For years I had this pattern. Guys who looked exciting on the surface, tattoos, fast cars, muscles that screamed for attention. They walked into a room and instantly owned it. And I told myself that was confidence. In reality, it was control. It took me years to figure out the difference. Some of them were fighters, literally MMA amateurs who thought every night out was a chance to prove themselves. Others were dealers, hustlers, or men who lived on the edge of the law. They were charming until they weren't, fun until they snapped, and dangerous in ways that stopped being attractive real fast. I'd been shoved, screamed at, ghosted, cheated on, and once even locked in a bathroom while my ex handled business in the living room. I told myself I was done, that I wanted something different, something steady. That's how I ended up on True Connect. This newer dating app that wasn't as casual as Tinder but not as old school as Match. I didn't expect much, but I thought maybe if I put myself out there, I'd at least meet someone who wasn't part of the world I was trying to leave behind. That's where I matched with Julian Mercer. Julian's profile didn't scream anything flashy. His main picture was him leaning against a wooden fence with a dog sitting at his feet, the evening sun behind them. His bio said he was 32, worked as a civil engineer, loved weekend road trips, and this line made me smile, was better at cooking breakfast than dinner. Something about that felt safe. Safe in a way I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. When we matched, he messaged first, "Julian. Okay, serious question. If you could only keep one record for the rest of your life, what would it be?" It caught me off guard. Most guys just led with, "Hey beautiful," or something crude. Me. Probably What's Going On by Marvin Gaye. My dad used to play it all the time. Julian. Solid choice. Mine's cliche, but Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Every track hits. No skips. I laughed at that. It was the first time in a long while I felt like someone actually saw me. We texted for 2 weeks. We talked about everything: music, work, food, stupid reality TV. He told me about the bridges he worked on and how sometimes construction got delayed for the most ridiculous reasons, like missing bolts or trucks stuck in traffic for hours. I told him about the dental clinic where I worked as an assistant, about the endless phone calls and paperwork. The more we talked, the more I let my guard down. I didn't give him the full picture of my past. Never do that too early, but I admitted I'd dated some bad guys, that I wanted something different now. He didn't judge. He just said, "Julian, I get it. Everyone's got history. What matters is where you want to go, not where you've been." That line stuck with me. So when he asked me if I wanted to meet up, I said yes. I chose the place, a quiet little pub on the edge of the city called the Lantern's Rest. It wasn't fancy, but it wasn't a dive either. I'd been there a couple of times. It felt safe, neutral, far enough that I wouldn't run into anyone from my past, or so I thought. I got there early. Nervous energy always makes me punctual. I grabbed a small table near the back, where I could see the door. Old habit, I never sit with my back to the entrance. When Julian walked in, my heart did this weird stutter. He looked exactly like his picture's sandy blonde hair that fell just a little into his hazel eyes. A beard trimmed close, jeans and a simple button-up shirt. Not trying too hard, just himself. He smiled when he spotted me, and I felt something loosen in my chest. Julian. Camille? Hey, sorry if I'm a minute late. Traffic was murder near the square. Me. You're right on time, I'm just early. We ordered drinks, me a gin and tonic, him a beer, and started talking. And it was easy. Effortless even. Just like our texts. We talked about his job, my love for old records, random things like favorite diners and guilty pleasure shows. He teased me about watching Love Island. I teased him about still owning a Wii. I caught myself laughing. Actually laughing. Not the forced kind you do on dates to fill silence. For a little while I thought, maybe this could work. Maybe this is what normal feels like. About an hour in, Julian excused himself to use the bathroom. I stayed at the table, sipping my drink, scrolling my phone, trying not to overthink. But when he came back, something in his expression had shifted. His smile was still there, but it didn't reach his eyes the same way. He looked distracted. Me. Everything okay? Julian. Yeah. Just nothing. Don't worry. I wanted to press, but I didn't. I'd learned not to push men when they closed off. We finished our drinks, and it was getting late. The pub had started emptying out, and I didn't want to drag the night too long. Julian offered to drive me home. I hesitated. I don't usually accept rides on the first date, but it was late, and I didn't want to wait for a bus alone. So I said yes. We walked out back to the lot where his car was parked. The air was cold enough that I pulled my jacket tighter. The lot was dimly lit, the kind of place where shadows linger too long. That's when I noticed them. A group of 4 or 5 people hanging near the far edge of the lot, skinny, twitchy, restless energy pouring off them. I knew that look. Too many nights around men who used. Sleepless eyes, aggressive laughter, and then my stomach dropped. I recognized one of them. Johnny. He used to run with an ex of mine, a dealer named Mason. Johnny had always been unpredictable. The kind of guy who could be laughing one minute and smashing bottles the next. I hadn't seen him in years, but the moment I did, old fear sparked in my chest. I gripped Julian's arm, me whispering, "Let's just get to the car. Quick. Julian, you know them?" Me, just, please, let's go. We picked up the pace, but Johnny noticed. Johnny shouting, well, look who it is, little Camille. My blood went cold. The group started moving toward us, spreading out like they were corralling prey. One guy had a shaved head, broad shoulders under a filthy hoodie. Another was jittering like he couldn't stand still. Julian tensed beside me. Julian, what's this about? Me. Old connections. Just keep walking. But we didn't make it to the car. The tall one with the shaved head stepped forward. Shaved head. Who's this, your new boyfriend? Julian raised his hand slightly, trying to stay calm. Julian, we're just leaving. Don't want any trouble. They laughed. Ugly, sharp. One of them pulled out a crowbar, swinging it casually like it was just a toy. I felt panic clawing up my throat. Julian grabbed my hand. Julian, get in the car, now. We hurried, but the group closed in. The crowbar guy smashed the side mirror as we fumbled with the doors. Another kicked the side panel, leaving a dent. Johnny, you don't walk away from us, Camille. Not after everything. I screamed as Julian shoved me into the passenger seat and slid behind the wheel. The group was pounding on the windows, shouting, laughing. The engine roared to life, and Julian peeled out, tires screeching, the group jumping back just enough for us to escape. The silence in the car was suffocating. My hands shook as I fumbled with the seatbelt, breath coming in ragged bursts. Me. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't know they'd be there. I thought. Julian, tight voice. Camille, what the hell was that? Me. They're from my past. I cut ties years ago. I swear. Julian. They didn't act like it. I felt tears sting my eyes. Me. I wanted tonight to be normal. I didn't mean for this to happen. He didn't say anything. Just kept his eyes on the road, jaw tight. When we reached my building, I turned to him. Desperate. Me. Julian. I'm sorry. Please believe me. He looked at me for a long moment. His face softened, just a little. Julian. It's not your fault. But I don't know if I can handle that kind of chaos. My heart cracked. Me. Can we try again? Please? Julian. Quietly. We'll see. I got out, shaky, holding on to the thin thread of hope that maybe, just maybe. He meant it. The next day, I texted him. No reply. The day after that, I tried again. Silence. By the third day, I checked the app. He'd unmatched me. I sat on my couch staring at my phone, numb. I couldn't even blame him. His car was damaged. He'd been terrified, and all because of me, because my past clung to me like smoke I couldn't wash out. I thought about explaining more, about begging him to understand, but I didn't. He'd made his choice, and maybe that was the lesson, that no matter how much I wanted to leave my old life behind, it wasn't done with me. I told myself I'd keep trying, that maybe one day I'd meet someone who could see past the mess. But deep down, I wasn't sure if that day would ever come. That night, I sat in the dark of my apartment, every creak outside making me flinch, wondering if Johnny or the others would come looking for me again. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just scared of being alone. I was scared of never escaping. I never thought I'd be the type of person to end up with a story like this. If you'd asked me a year ago, I would have laughed it off. Said stuff like, oh, crazy things only happen to other people. But that was before I met Nolan Reese. For context, I'm 27, and until last winter, my dating history was a collection of disappointments. Not train wrecks exactly, but nothing worth remembering. My longest relationship was a year and a half with a guy named Derek who thought romance was buying me Taco Bell after a night out. After him, I swore I'd stop wasting time with people who weren't serious. But, truthfully, I was lonely. I worked as a medical receptionist in Clearwater, Florida, and my days were mostly spent scheduling appointments, printing insurance forms, and answering phones. I'd come home to my tiny one-bedroom apartment, eat leftovers, and scroll until I fell asleep. Some nights, the silence felt heavy, like it was pressing into my skin. I wanted someone to talk to, someone who looked at me like I mattered. So when my coworker Tasha introduced me to her cousin Nolan, I was curious. She hyped him up, said he was polite, funny, had old-school gentleman vibes. She even joked, "Girl, he opens doors and actually listens. He's not like these idiots out here." Nolan texted me the same night Tasha gave him my number. He was charming right from the start, nothing over the top, just thoughtful. Nolan. Hey, I'm Nolan. Tasha told me you're the reason the office runs like a machine. Me. Haha, she's exaggerating. Nolan. Good. I like modesty. It's rare. That little line hooked me. He didn't use emojis or sleazy compliments. Instead, he asked me questions. What kind of books do you read? What's your favorite food? What do you usually do on weekends? It felt like he actually wanted to know me. After 3 days of back and forth texting, he asked me out. Nolan, there's this seafood place in Dunedin I really like. Cozy spot, right near the water. Want to go Saturday evening? Me. Sounds perfect. And I meant it. The thought of dinner by the water, maybe a walk after, seemed like a dream compared to my usual nights of reheated pasta and Netflix. Saturday arrived, and I was nervous in that fluttery, excited way. I spent too long picking out an outfit, finally settling on a soft yellow sundress that felt effortless but pretty. My roommate, Claire, leaned against the doorway as I curled my hair. "Okay, but what do we know about him?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I sighed. "He's Tasha's cousin. Works in construction management and likes surfing. That's it." Claire crossed her arms. "You sure he's not one of those smooth talkers who seem perfect until they snap?" I rolled my eyes. "You watch too many crime shows." "Uh-huh," she said. "And those women always say that right before something bad happens." Her words stuck with me, even as I laughed them off. But when Nolan pulled up outside my apartment, a black Toyota Tacoma, spotless, the kind of car that looked like it belonged to someone who took pride in appearances, I pushed the thought aside. He stepped out, and my nerves eased. He was tall, well-dressed in a navy button-down and dark jeans, his hair neatly combed. He smiled warmly, opening the passenger door for me. "Camille?" he said softly. "Yes," I replied. "You look even better than Tasha described." I flushed, muttering, "Thanks," as I got into his truck. It felt like the start of something good. The seafood restaurant was a little local spot with string lights hanging across the patio, the smell of fried shrimp wafting through the air. As we sat down, Nolan gestured toward the menu. "Order whatever you like," he said. "Don't hold back." It was small, but thoughtful. A lot of guys I'd dated made jokes about women ordering salads. With Nolan, I felt comfortable enough to actually get the shrimp platter. We talked, and I mean really talked. He told me about growing up in Sarasota, about his childhood dog, Copper, and how he once broke his arm trying to skateboard off a shed. I laughed so hard at that story I nearly spit out my drink. At one point he leaned forward, his expression soft. "You have a nice laugh. You should use it more often." I blinked, a little caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "You seem like someone who doesn't get told enough that she's special." It was disarming. I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled. Dinner was perfect. It felt easy, natural, like we were old friends rediscovering each other. When the check came, he didn't even glance at me, just paid it and stood. "Come on," he said. "The beach is better than dessert." We strolled barefoot along the sand, the sky glowing pink and orange as the sun dipped low. I let the waves lap at my feet, feeling giddy and hopeful. "This is beautiful," I said. "Not as beautiful as you," he replied, and for once, it didn't sound cheesy. We walked for a while, talking about random things, his love for surfing, my dream of traveling to Greece, our favorite childhood cartoons. It was lighthearted, perfect, until it wasn't. The shift was subtle at first. He started talking about his family, about his parents. "My dad was tough," he said. "Old-fashioned. Didn't take crap from anyone. Especially not my mom." I glanced at him, frowning slightly. "What do you mean?" He shrugged casually, kicking at the sand. "You know, if she mouthed off, he'd put her in her place. A slap, maybe worse. But it worked. They stayed together. Strong marriage." I froze mid-step, my stomach tightening. "Wait, you're saying your dad hit your mom?" Nolan looked at me like I was missing the point. "Yeah, and it didn't ruin anything. Sometimes women need a reminder." My heart dropped. "Nolan, that's not okay." His smile faded. "Excuse me?" I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "No real man ever hits a woman. That's not love. That's abuse." His jaw tightened. His eyes, once warm, went cold. "So, you're insulting my dad now?" "No, I'm just saying." "Don't," he snapped, his voice sharp. "You don't know him. You don't know me." I tried to take a step back, but his hand shot out, gripping my arm with shocking force. Pain shot up my skin. "Nolan, let go," I said, panic rising. Instead, he slapped me. Hard. The sound cracked through the air, and my cheek burned instantly. I staggered, eyes wide. "What the hell?" Before I could finish, he shoved me, his fist connecting with my shoulder. I stumbled into the sand, pain radiating down my arm. "Don't you ever disrespect my family again," he hissed. Everything blurred. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Tears stung my eyes as I scrambled to my feet. Nolan, stop, please. He grabbed at me again, fingers digging into my skin. But then voices. Hey, let her go. A group of strangers was running toward us. 2 men and a woman. Nolan whipped his head toward them, rage twisting his face. Mind your damn business. One of the men lunged, yanking him back. Nolan fought, cursing, thrashing, but they held him off. The woman rushed to me, kneeling in the sand. Are you okay? Oh my God, you're bleeding. I touched my lip. Blood. My whole body trembled. Nolan screamed at the group, trying to push past, but someone shouted about calling the cops. That's when he bolted, disappearing into the darkness. I sat on a bench near the beach, wrapped in a stranger's jacket, still crying. The woman stayed beside me, rubbing my back gently. You're safe now. It's over. But it didn't feel over. When the police arrived, I told them everything: dinner, the walk, his words, the sudden violence. My voice shook, my hands shook, but I forced myself to say it all. They took his name, his number, the description of his truck, promised to look for him. But deep down, I knew he was gone. The woman who'd helped me insisted on driving me home. On the way, I stared out the window. Numb, my reflection in the glass showed a swollen cheek, a busted lip, and eyes that didn't look like mine anymore. When I got home, I locked every door and window, then sat on the couch in silence. My sundress still smelled faintly of salt water and fried shrimp. I hadn't even changed when the tears came again. That night changed me. It wasn't just the bruises that lingered for days, but the betrayal. How someone could smile, laugh, and then turn violent in a heartbeat. How I could have mistaken that smile for kindness. The police called a few times later, but they never caught him. He vanished into the night like a ghost, but his shadow stayed. Now, every time someone suggests setting me up, every time my phone buzzes with a text from a new number, my stomach knots. Because I'll never forget Nolan's face, how quickly it turned from warmth to rage, and I'll never look at a first date the same way again.